People of Reddit, who was your worst teacher and why? Mrs. Macass. I'm using a fake name. Macass taught algebra at a college level to us as freshmen, which to her meant going breakneck speed through the algebra book and testing once a day. The pace was so fast and poor that most of the class failed every year. Even a girl with straight A's got a C in Macass' class. She had the highest score out of the whole school. I don't know how someone sees half their class failing all year every year and thinks, yeah, I'm teaching the right way. Wow. She is ducking ridiculous. Why did the school not sack her? It was a duty school and I believe there are some protections in place for the teacher's employment. One teacher threw a chair at a student and didn't get removed. So the bar must be pretty high to get fired. The teacher who used to touch girls' shoulders and backs all the time and sat on a girl's lap during our lesson once. We had one who would lean over you, pretending to look at your work, but really looking down your shirt. Everyone knew about it. Nobody did anything. We once campaigned to get a girls' basketball team set up. Girls weren't allowed to play basketball when I was at school. Sexist crap. They eventually said we could have won, and Mr. Perv would be the coach. Of course no one wanted to play then. Wow, that sucks. Nobody said anything about pervy teachers while I was in school either. But honestly, without proof or actually being molested, would anything be done to the creepy teachers anyway? Of course not. I'm French, from Paris. My English teacher used to make fun of my accent. I just stopped participating in her class. Some people just have no respect for other cultures. I'm sorry you had to experience that. I think the French accent sounds sexy. Maybe he was trying to hit on op. I clearly found out yesterday. Got a physics teacher who doesn't know how to teach and expects us to be masters at physics on B level. We had a task to complete some calculations and nobody in the class solved it. So he chose one of my friends for the presentation on something no one in the class could figure out how to do. He got her up to the whiteboard and then made degrading and sarcastic comment for 20 minutes until she stormed out crying. Duck him. He sounds like a dickhead. I hope your friend's okay. Yeah, duck him. I think she is. Some of the girls went and complained to the principal and the advisor guy, so I think there's going to be taken action. With a man like him, it's not hard to imagine it's not his first complaint. Had to get a bad test signed by a parent. Came home to my mom having serial seizures. Ended up spending the night in the hospital with her. When I told my 5th grade teacher why I couldn't get it signed, she said it was no excuse and I kept the F. As I turned around while crying, my crush was right there looking at me creeped out. Oh damn. That's rough. I honestly don't know what to say. Hope your mom's okay. She's on medication and I've got training for it. My 6th grade teacher. For some reason, he picked one kid as his whipping boy for the year and made his life miserable. Well, I was the lucky winner. I confirmed this with my brother because he said he did it to another kid when he hurt him. I'll admit that I wasn't the best 6th grader. I was having problems at home and he was making things 10x worse. He would make me dance in front of the class if I acted out. He would read my answers to essay questions to the class if he thought they were stupid. One time he even showed the class my awful handwriting and asked if he should give me a 0 because he had a hard time reading it. Of course the class agreed and he gave me a 0. The sounds of the entire class laughing at me cut me deep. Plus, the class thinks they have carte blanche to pick on you on the playground if the teacher gets to pick on you. 6th grade was not fun for me. I often wonder how sadistic a person must be to pick on little kids. How could they possibly enjoy it? I know, right? It's sick. If hell exists, he'll be there eventually. Hell does exist. We just call it Earth. There was one teacher who took pleasure in making kids cry. She was sadistic. The things she bullied me for later turned out to be undiagnosed autism. Hope she got sacked. I'm on the spectrum too, although it's minor, and had a teacher like this once. I feel your pain. Unfortunately she didn't. Some of my little cousins still went to the school many years later, and she was still known for bullying. a freshman year English teacher who had us do a pie chart assigning blame for the Holocaust after reading Elie Wiesel's Night. One of the categories was Jews for not trying to escape, and another was God. When we asked if we could assign 0 to any categories, she said no. She also led the cheerleading squad and harassed girls in her class to join. Like going down a line and asking each girl why they hadn't signed up for cheer, but would pointedly skip girls she didn't like in front of the class. Edit. Changed Ellie to Elie. My autocorrect still has TLOU2 on the brain. Out of all the comments here, none of them involved anti-Semitism. That's a new one. And it is not okay. I hope you are, though. Must have been rough. Yeah, I regret not reporting that. She was a pretty awful teacher all around. And not well liked. My 6th grade teacher used to join in with the bullies when they were making fun of me and laugh when I started crying. If I asked him any questions, he would repeat the question in a mocking voice and the bullies would laugh. Sounds like he still has issues from his middle school days. My freshman year health teacher. She was one of those teachers who was really too old to be teaching and was really out of touch with students. One of those blind obedience types. You either did what she said or failed. You mean incredibly strict teachers that act like they're in the 1800s? I wouldn't be surprised if she had a cane on her at all times. Yep, she didn't have a cane, but it wouldn't have been out of place. My 4th grade teacher got the entire class to say they hated my guts in unison with her 3 times. She similarly publicly humiliated other children as well. During parent-teacher interviews, she would rant on and on about how we were all sex perverts and obsessed with sex. Did I mention we were 4th graders? She believed that ice cream had automotive antifreeze in it, that the reflective lines on the road were made from condor retinas, WTF, and that meat in the supermarket was colored red with highly toxic dye. She would smoke in the classrooms during recess, and there were rumors that the cigarettes were accompanied by rye whiskey. In geography, she taught us that the continent of Australia was named after a country in Europe next to Switzerland, and that each state was a separate country with a different language. Tasmanians may be surprised to learn that they should be speaking Portuguese in their little island republic. When kids who had been to or had relatives down under corrected her, she became enraged and said no single country would be allowed to occupy an entire continent. I wish hell was a real place so she could spend eternity there. A person like that has no business working with kids. Correction. A person like that has no business working. Period. IDK man. She's gotta eat right. I think cleaning out park bathrooms solo would be a good job for her. Here's a 50-page paper of chemistry problems. Finish it by the end of class and don't make a sound unless you're asking me a question I'll berate you for. That is pretty much my worst nightmare. Who do they think you are? Sonic the Hedgehog? Mine was an old lady that led one of the first projects last school year. I study art communication and design, and obviously every teacher has their own idea about what art or design is supposed to be, but this lady enforced her own views like facts. She gave students no space to develop their own concept and failed everyone who tried to stick to themselves. In addition to that, she was also extremely rude to anyone who questioned or challenged her views. Luckily I never got on her bad side, but I'm happy she retired. Glad it didn't affect you too much. Good luck in the future. Grade 8 our teacher. She is basically as two-faced as a person can be. If she liked you, then she spares no effort or expense to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect just for you. If she dislikes you, she spares no effort or expense to make your life absolute hell. This might make it sound like all you'll need to do is get on her good side, but it's not nearly that simple. She has a very specific set of expectations from the students she likes, and will go out of her way to impose those expectations on those students. Being a favorite of hers is basically surrendering any semblance of autonomy in the class, and if by some sheer force of will a student dares defy her, then that student is automatically placed at the bottom of the classroom hierarchy and loathed for the rest of the year. I was one of the students who went from being a favorite to being the bottom, and let me tell you, it very noticeably ducked up my education and set me on a course for failure. Wow, that sounds like hell. Hopefully you're not on a course for failure, and you can turn it around. There are quite few to pick from, so I'll give 2 worst cases. 1. A geography teacher who would open all the windows in class in winter. Wouldn't let us put a winter jacket on when she did that, and then complain we get sick and aren't present on big tests. If you told her that it's cold, she would straight up attack you offended, because how dare us complain when she feels like fainting when the windows are closed. She calmed down after we reported her to our homeroom teacher, but held grudge and lowered everyone's grades. 2. A middle-aged lady who apparently never had period because she wouldn't let us girls go change our pads/tampons, and who didn't understand that period cramps are real and prevent many girls from moving around too much, including me. I've never had a period, I'm a guy, but they seem like the most horrible things ever. Then why did you put one at the end of your sentence? Hypocrite. I've had a ton, but the one that made me the most mad was a social studies teacher. She was sickly sweet most of the time and was constantly in my business. My classmates loved listening to us fight. Haha. The thing that pissed me off the most was her telling me, I think it's time you get rid of your dog, because I'd said she'd kept me up by crying the night before. My dog is my best friend. That's pretty insensitive. Your dog doesn't deserve that kind of BS. For a social studies teacher, she's a pretty bad person. Another student slapped me hard in front of the teacher, like the first row. For context, I was 8 and he was 14. The teacher didn't give a shit and didn't do anything. That's why I hate private school. Damn. Hope the rest of private school isn't as bad. I went to private school all up until college. There's definitely a lot of favoritism running around, but it's not all that bad. If you do have any questions about it, I'm more than willing to answer them. There was this one lady who was very picky about how our folders looked. I have a certain disability that influences my handwriting a lot and doesn't make it look as neat as the other girls. She regularly used the things I wrote. My folder, etc. as a negative example, even though I followed all of her criteria. It just happened to look crooked. I was being bullied a lot during that time and lost a lot of trust in my teachers because of her. Wow. What a bitch. My binders and folders were also always a mesa and I always flipped them upside down because I'm a lefty. I was lightly teased by friends, but never by teachers. What a horrid example she set for everyone. I'm sorry you had to go through that. My worst teacher was the middle school Spanish teacher. She also taught French and German. All her blackboards were filled with all those languages in really small handwriting, and her room was always dark. She yelled a lot and refused to speak in English, even though this was the first time most of us had ever taken Spanish. She expected us to come in already knowledgeable and already speaking fluently. She would scream at us if we didn't answer her in Spanish, and picked on me because English is not my first language, so obviously I should have been able to pick up a third language much easier. She told me if I was able to pick up English so quickly, I should pick up Spanish easily too. Wow, that is horrible, and a sure way to ruin the fun of learning new languages. Reminds me a bit of my current company, who only hire you as an apprentice software developer if you already know how to program, have at least 2 years of prior experience, etc. The institution that supervises these apprenticeships specifically stated that you don't need prior experience nor knowledge. It's directed at students fresh from school. I was in a class with a bunch of people, including the class clown, several guys from various sports teams in our school, and people who were straight shithousers. I was a quiet kid, so this teacher would find any reason to pick on me. Once, she started the lesson by publicly berating me for not doing homework, and I mean proper trouble, and set me up for a detention. Minutes later, as she was handing out the marked homework, mine was the last one she handed out, and everyone noted this. Once, she took to childlike bullying to the point that everyone in the class, mind you, in our school, we are pretty tight with each other anyway, especially this class, unanimously told her she was crossing the line, leaving her red-faced. She also liked predicting people low grades for the GCSEs, some 16-year-olds take. A big deal at the time. and failed to reach people properly to the point that she got sacked 3 months before our final exams. Our school hired a temp teacher, and every single grade rose by about 5/6 levels. She's now doing private tuition. God help her students. For 3 years, my history teacher taught all the history lessons in exactly one way. He would stand in front of the class, open the textbook and slowly read it word for word in dull monotone until he reached the question section, at which point he would randomly pick a student to answer it. It turned out, however, he did this intentionally because he was retiring on what would have been the year we finished school and wanted to make his last years easier by reducing the number of students who chose to do history in year 10 and 11. According to my older brother, he was actually a really good teacher. My elementary school teacher made my 4th grade life hell. Early on she didn't like me because I had 2 moms, made fun of me in class, called me to the board and humiliated me multiple times, said to my parents I will end up in a school for special needs, and basically made me an antisocial boy that only played video games. Well, suck it. I'm in a gymnasium, basically best school in Germany from 5th to 12th grade. Now, have friends, outgoing and social, and have good grades. So whatever you tried to do to me, you didn't succeed. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.